Tejasvina vaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace and blessed beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. So, good afternoon and welcome to our Saturday class on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which was where the sutras were interpreted and commented on by Swami Prabhavananda with the assistance of Christopher Isherwood, and published as the book How to Know God. We're in chapter 2 on studying the yamas and niyamas. We're on the niyamas portion, which are the steps 1 and 2, or limbs 1 and 2 of Patanjali's yoga. Our regular reader, Jeff Saulich, is occupied with some business at his Guru's Center in St. Petersburg, Florida. So he will not be joining us today. But Haima Naidu very kindly volunteered to read. She knows where we are and she'll tell us.
Yes. Do you want me to start, Brother Chakra?
Just tell everybody where we are.
Yes, we are. I will. Good morning, everyone. Namaste. We are on page 162, 44. I remember Jeff was reading 44 and we were talking about it. And I will just read the 44 and then go to number 45, a sutra. It's a chapter 2, page 162, 163. That's where we are right now.
In this book, that's page 154.
Okay, yeah, some books differ, I think. Depends on which book we are. So, but it's sutra number 44. I'll just read that one more time and then go on to 45. Number 44. As the result of study, one obtains the vision of that aspect of God which one has chosen to worship. One more time. As the result of study, one obtains the vision of that aspect of God which one has chosen to worship. As we have already noted in chapter 2, Aphorism 1, Patanjali means by study not only the reading of the scriptures, but also the practice of making japam, that is, repeating the mantra, the holy name of a chosen aspect of God, which your teacher has given you at the time of your initiation. It is to the practice of japam that Patanjali here specifically refers. Number 45. As the result of devotion to God, one achieves samadhi. As a result of devotion to God, one achieves samadhi. This and the preceding aphorism both refer to what is called bhakti yoga. We have already mentioned these yogas or paths to union with God. Now, for the sake of clarity, it will be well to define the 4 which are most important. Bhakti yoga is the path of loving devotion to God. It is expressed by means of ritual worship, prayer, and japam. It is the cultivation of a direct, intense, personal relationship between worshipper and worshipped. I'll read this one more time. Bhakti Yoga is the path of loving devotion to God. It is expressed by means of ritual worship, prayer, and japam. It is the cultivation of a direct, intense, personal relationship between worshipper and worshipped. In the practice of Bhakti Yoga, some special aspect of God or some divine incarnation is chosen so that the devotee's love may become more easily concentrated. In the practice of Bhakti Yoga, some special aspect of God or some divine incarnation is chosen so that the devotee's love may become more easily concentrated. For those who are naturally drawn to this approach, it is probably the simplest of all. And there is no doubt that the great majority of believers in all the world's major religions are fundamentally bhakti yogis. Karma yoga is the path of selfless.
Hang on just a moment.
Sure, Brother Shankara.
Is there any comment from anyone from their own wisdom or experience, or any concern or question that this description of bhakti yoga gives rise to? This is the path of devotion prescribed by Patanjali, this direct personal relationship with the divine being, which leads to samadhi. Samadhi being the understanding, this experience of samadhi is savikalpa samadhi, and it is the awareness that the divine presence that you have been worshiping is the totality of all existence. All other things are subsidiary. Your own existence, your own way of being, all the things of your life and other people's lives, all the things of universe are aspects or manifestations of this one divine presence. This is the samadhi that's being described. So anything else from anyone? Any comment or question?
I have a comment, Brother Shankara.
Yes, please, dear.
The Way of a Pilgrim, when I finished that book, I felt the same way. Most all religions are kind of directing towards this path. The Pilgrim, Orthodox Christian, and he explains it so well. It's such a wonderful, wonderful book.
Yes, he recites a mantra.
Yes.
It's a Christian mantra, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me.
Mm-hmm.
And he recites it to the point where it becomes all of his awareness is focused on the truth of what he is saying, particularly the words mercy and Christ.
Yes.
I'm sorry I can't talk right now. I'm in class. So, is there any other comment or question from anyone? Thank you.
Sure.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Triguna.
can you go again the last 2-3 sentences you said of the paragraph?
Oh,
About-
Haima
I can read that to you. One more time.
No, yeah, explanation. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Well, go ahead and read it, and I'll say a few words again.
Sure. Bhakti Yoga is the path of loving devotion to God. It is expressed by means of ritual worship, prayer, and japa.
Yeah.
It is the cultivation of a direct, intense personal relationship between worshipper and worshipped. In the practice of Bhakti Yoga, some special aspect of God or some divine incarnation is chosen so that the devotee's love may become more easily concentrated.
Yes. Yes.
For those who are naturally drawn to this approach, it is probably the simplest of all.
Okay.
And there is no doubt that the great majority of believers in all the world's major religions are fundamentally bhakti yogis.
So, Triguna, what Haima noted was that there is a book published some time back, I've forgotten just how long back, called The Way of a Pilgrim, and then the pilgrim continues his way or follows his way.
I have read both of them. I'm
Okay.
familiar. Yes.
Well, this demonstrates in exquisite detail this personal relationship that grows up between the devotee, this peasant, who wants to understand what is meant by pray without ceasing. So he finds a teacher in the Russian Orthodox tradition called a starets, and the starets tells him, this is all you have to do. Repeat this prayer. Don't repeat it in your head, repeat it in your heart, and you will find then it will completely overwhelm your ordinary way of existence. And so this is what happens. The pilgrim becomes transformed, and this is what is being said by the Swami about what is being said by Patanjali, that when we have this relationship, this personal, intense relationship with the divine, it ends up transforming us, and we have this experience of savikalpa samadhi. That's, I think, a recapitulation pretty much of what I said, Triguna. Anything more?
No, that's okay. That's fine.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone about any of this? Okay, please go ahead.
Okay.
We're
Karma
going to
Yoga.
talk about karma yoga.
Karma Yoga is the path of selfless, God-dedicated action. By dedicating the fruits of one's work to God, and by working always with right means toward right ends, one may gradually achieve wisdom and non-attachment. Let me read one more time. Karma Yoga is the path of selfless, God-dedicated action. By dedicating the fruits of one's work to God, and by working always with the right means toward right ends, to the best of one's knowledge and ability at any particular moment, one may gradually achieve wisdom and non-attachment. Action is transcended through action. The bonds of attachment fall away. The wheel of karma ceases to revolve, peace comes to the spirit, and Brahman is known. Karma Yoga is the path best suited to vigorous temperaments which feel the call to duty and service in the world of human affairs. It leads such people through the dangers of overeagerness and undue anxiety and shows them how to find the inaction that is within action, the calm in the midst of the turmoil. Sri Krishna's advice to Arjuna in the Gita is largely concerned with the practice of Karma Yoga.
Okay, that's a very nice and concise definition,
Mhm.
Karma Yoga, and where you can find the fuller explanation of it, which is in Bhagavad Gita, starting with chapter 2. So, anything from anyone about this or anything else? Karma Yoga or anything having to do with selfless action, dedication of your actions to God, and so on. Anything at all?
Brother Shankar,
Yes.
this may be a little out of left field, but if you come to a point to where you see all your karma as auspicious, is that just a thought construct, or does it have any significance or bearing on the actual karma itself?
The thing to remember is that karma is a thing of the body, not of your indwelling spirit. The Atman, or indwelling spirit, has no karma. It's eternal, infinite, changeless. It wants nothing. It has nothing. It does nothing. And in the sense of our limited left brain knowledge, it knows nothing. It doesn't involve itself with any of that. All of our having and wanting and doing and knowing are part of our embodiment, this stardust spacesuit that is the garment of the indweller. So all the karma has to do with this. Now, can you see it as all auspicious? This is the advice of Holy Mother, Sri Sharada Devi. See everything that occurs to your embodied being as auspicious, and you will then be free from the karma, free from the effects of the karma, in a very profound way. And because of the purity that comes from the pursuit of seeing things as you described it, all as auspicious, the purification that comes from that, even those karmas that would have affected the body seriously, something will happen, she says, but it will not be nearly as serious as it might have been if that your embodiment still needed a lesson that was been delivered by that karma. So yes, indeed, you can come to see all karma as auspicious, but the thing to remember that is karma is not personal. It is strictly a thing that is produced by the gunas as they do their work, and they influence and stimulate the mental impressions that have been left by prior embodiments, if indeed there is such a thing as prior embodiment. We're told there is. So these mental impressions are stimulated, and the body acts and reacts. but none of it is personal. So if you can see it as impersonal and auspicious, it'll be a much easier ride, so to speak, for the dweller within the garment of this spacesuit. Does that answer your question, Glenn?
Yes, I was coming to the conclusion that the karma is strictly carried by the body,
Yes.
and that once you see it as all auspicious, there's no duality to it. So in a sense, it ceases.
Well, in the absolute sense, yes. In the relative sense of all of these embodiments that we see here on the screen, there is certainly karma. Certainly things happen. And this is why the Swami says if you practice karma yoga as taught by Sri Krishna, and as the Swami was just representing it here, you come to see the calm at the center of action, which is what we're going to talk about tomorrow morning. How to access and abide in that calm space in the midst of all of the things that occur to us, around us, so that we come to that place where we can say with Walt Whitman, apart from the pulling and hauling stands what I am. All the pulling and hauling, pulling and hauling of daily activity and all of our karmas. Anything else?
Yes. Well, let's talk. I'm under the impression that the soul knows everything, but once embodied, it doesn't know that it knows anything.
Well,
which is slightly different.
that is another way of looking at it, Robert. But in talking about the everyday knowledge of the dualistic universe, this is, as Glenn was just pointing out, Glenn Morris was just pointing out, it's immaterial. That knowledge of the left mind is just something that comes and goes. It is auspicious in the sense that all of being and creation is auspicious, no matter how it seems to us. So
I think the result is the same, but I think for the student, it is important that they understand it the way it actually is for their further understanding of other things that may be affected by that.
okay, what is the correction that you would like to offer, Robert, to what has been said before, that the others among us need to hear?
That the soul knows everything, as opposed to, this is saying that the soul knows nothing. The soul knows everything, but once embodied, it does not know that it knows everything. So the result is the same, but the process is
Okay.
a little different that could affect other aspects of evolution.
Okay. So, yes, that which is infinite, changeless, and eternal is also omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. And this is one of the things that Patanjali remarks on in chapter 4, that we reach that state where we have our omnipresence, our omnipotence, and our omniscience, and it is the last obstacle to overcome because it too is knowledge of any kind, is in fact a limitation. And so this is what I meant by the the Atman being beyond limitation. It has the capacity for omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence, but it doesn't go there, so to speak. And this is not possible for the left mind. These words can be said, but it's not possible for the left mind to understand how both things can be true at once. But I agree with what you said. The Atman, the indwelling spirit, the soul as you call it, does in fact know everything. This is what Vivekananda says. There's nothing to be learned. It is only to be uncovered or discovered. And the 4 yogas are each one a way of discovering the truth behind the appearance. Does that come pretty close to aligning what you said with what was said before?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, good.
I have a comment that I learned from Swami Chandrasekharananda from Portland, Oregon, Brother Shankara.
Yes, dear.
He said that Krishna started Gita to make Arjuna realize his true inner self, to get out of his struggle and confusion. And that is when once Arjuna found out his inner self through Gita from Krishna, then he got his courage to reach the goal for the good of the humanity, good of the society. That's the whole Gita teachings taught him. And he also said everything will become clear once you know yourself, then you will understand Karma Yoga better. That's what he said. Once you know yourselves, the Karma Yoga makes more sense and you will understand Karma
Perfect.
Yoga.
Perfect.
That's right. Yeah, that truly touched me. It is very true in my own case, I would say. I experienced that. Once I knew my inner self, detachment became so much easier
Yes.
with the world and around you. And you won't take anything to the heart. All these things that are happening around us, whether it's a family or the world affairs or anything, you think of it as, well, it's happening.
Yes.
That's the way it is. So it just makes you calm and, no struggle, no agitation.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then there comes those days when there is struggle and agitation.
It comes and then it goes away very quickly, because once you attain that peace inside you, then it's like a wave.
Yes.
Wave on the water, in the river and the oceans. It just comes and goes. You easily let it go. You don't hold on to it. We don't hold on to it
simply
anymore.
experience yourself going into the trough
We take
and
the
then
witness
rising
stand.
up on the wave again.
Exactly. We take the witness stand easily. Easily we can witness it.
Yes.
That's my understanding and experience.
Thank you, Haima. That's very accurately put.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone?
Yeah, this small sentence, action is transcendented through action. And I'm thinking it's probably a pretty dense sentence that I'm not understanding. Can you unpack it a little bit?
Well, we learn by acting. We do not learn by reading. We do not learn by thinking. We learn what to do and how to behave by reading and thinking. But then if we simply read about it and think about it and don't do anything, it never becomes a reality for us. So we have to act. We have to be that which we were thinking about or reading about. This is why the Swami said, study isn't just something you do in a book. It involves the action of making japam and other things. So it's through these things, it is through acting that we learn the significance of action, that we learn the meaning of action, and that calm center that is within action, this inaction within action. Does that make sense, Bhaskar?
Yeah, it really makes sense. I just had one other observation. I mean, thinking about ADHD and thinking about type A personality and reading this paragraph, I'm thinking, is karma yoga an antidote to ADHD or type A personality?
But type A personality is one thing, ADHD is another. ADHD is a neurodivergent condition. It's an actual classification within the diagnoses in psychiatry. And so there are, will it help a person who has stabilized themselves enough through medication and therapy with their ADHD to no longer be so scattered? Can they then practice karma yoga? Yes. But before that, when they are so scattered that it's very hard for them to maintain any linear direction. As I say, ADHD is a recognized diagnostic term within psychiatry. So it has a very specific set of explanations for what is meant by ADHD. And it is a neurological difficulty, just as if you had multiple sclerosis. That is a neurological and biochemical difficulty. And the only difference is, if you have multiple sclerosis, people will give you a lot of, cut you a lot of slack and give you a lot of sympathy and empathy. If you have ADHD, people tend to think that you should just pull up your socks and get on with it. Now, to return to the type A personality, the type A personality is, as I understand type A, is very goal-directed, results-oriented, and is very impatient with any obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
That's a rough summary of a type A personality. I think I heard Haima agree.
I truly agree.
Her background as a therapist. So that's different, though type A personalities may be bipolar, which is another classification within psychiatry. But the type A personality can definitely benefit from, when it is not a neurological condition, but a learned behavior as a way of being in the world. It can definitely be helped by karma yoga.
Can I say something?
Please, dear.
Well, you knew I probably was going to pipe in about this stuff. I think that saying that ADHD and those types of neurodivergence are like physical diseases is not correct. I think they're seeing more, researchers are seeing more and more that they, you know, you can point to a physical component, but it's not like, actually, I think they are the same, but not in the way we understand it, because nothing is purely neurological or physical or biological. Everything is physical and emotional and mental and social and cultural. I think one of the reasons, I mean, more people in this country right now, especially young people, have clinical depression and anxiety and all kinds of other things. And is this because all of a sudden people have neurological or chemical imbalances? Yeah, they do. But why? Which comes first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing? I personally, having lived with anxiety and depression and other things all my life, feel like that a lot of times it's not that, I mean, medications help a lot of people. They help me because they do balance the chemicals. But I feel like the reason I'm having to balance my chemicals is because I live in a world that is not conducive to who I am. And people with ADHD is the same thing. The people I know who have been diagnosed with ADHD as adults who do best are people who have learned life skills so they can be themselves and take their, what society is saying, their weaknesses or their flaws, and turn them into their superpowers. And this is even going on right now in research with schizophrenia, which is a psychiatry considered a hard nut to crack. But they're finding that the purely chemical method of dealing with it, just, you know, drugs, the drugs are helpful, but only to get the person in a state where they can then begin to work on the psychosocial part of it.
I couldn't agree more with what you've said, particularly the part that says there is no line of demarcation between the neurological and the physical. We are one thing, and there is no line of demarcation. And so if, I won't say if, since the discussion that you commented on was incomplete, I'm glad that you completed it the way you did. And definitely you're right. The distinction was being made, or the question was asked about type A personality and ADHD. Well, I think it's still true what was said about the type A personality. The type A personality, it's much more easily, karma yoga is much more approachable and useful to a type A personality immediately than it would be to someone who has untreated ADHD.
Maybe, and maybe not. And I'm gonna just argue from real life about this. I know I am very, very, very close, biologically close to someone who's type A and has adult ADHD, but he's not really, I mean, he does karma yoga, I think, but he does it not to serve others as much as just to deal with his energy that needs to come out. And I know people who are very shy and introverted and type B, who can all, I mean, you don't, type A and ADHD don't necessarily go together. I mean, they can, but a person with one or the other can, I mean, a type A can be, a type B introvert can have ADHD. I just, you know, these are all labels. They're useful when we're trying to, you know, if you have a collection of symptoms that are disrupting your life or getting in the way of how you are doing your life, it's useful to have this collection of symptoms to go, oh, well, we've looked at that and we know that this and this and this can help. Let's try this to make this person's life better so that this person. But I think when someone is not well, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, they're out of balance. It's not, yeah. And
Right, and that's why being type A can be dangerous, because it will manifest itself in ulcers, heart attacks, a lot of bad stuff. So I also struggle with ADHD, and I have found taking a mantra and doing yoga helpful. It helps.
I think the imbalance is stemming from an over-identification of the outside world, though. That the more you believe in the illusory reality, the more that's going to persist.
absolutely. And I was thinking about that. These questions come into my mind when I'm just relaxing. And the question was, what is the greatest happiness? It's like I'm questioning and answering myself. What is the greatest happiness? And the answer came immediately: peace of mind. What brings peace of mind? How do we achieve peace of mind?
So
Not being gosh, my brain. What's the word? The word's right there. Aversion and attraction. Not that. Attachment, sorry. Releasing attachment to having our way. It's all about having our way. When something doesn't go our way or how we expected it to be, then we're attached to it. So we are suddenly miserable until we can let go of it. And we don't have peace of mind when we're wanting things to be a certain way. It doesn't mean that we do affect things as long as we're embodied. But Kent, you're exactly right. It's overly identifying with the outside world. Unfortunately, most of us are required to do that. And growing up in this world is so hard if you don't have parents who are slightly enlightened, because it's like you gotta compete and you gotta make money and you gotta get a job and you gotta do you have to like embrace this worldly world. It's very hard to grow up and become who you really are.
And what you said about being right, be about having your own way. Neem Karoli Baba, Ram Das's and Krishna Das's guru, said something like, "You will continue to be miserable as long as you insist on being right."
yes, totally agree, Brother Shankar.
And so, just a way of agreeing with you, Cindy. That's being attached to having our own way is a sure prescription for lack of peace of mind, and that's why we start this chapter, this part of this chapter. We started with the yamas. What is it that you have to restrain yourself from being? One of the things is being right. Always being, anyway.
And then wanting the world to look at through our eyes, expecting that then when you practice this karma yoga, and then that dissipates completely, slowly. And it's very difficult for several ADHD and ADDs to get the life skills they want. They hardly realize, some of them, not all of them, some of them don't even realize that their behavior is affecting other people around them.
That's one of the very difficult things.
Very difficult to convince them.
They don't see other people clearly.
They want everyone to see their own view. I know I have one family member. They want them to see they're brilliant people. They're brilliant, both type A personality, both ADD, ADHD, both are brilliant, brilliant, brilliant people. So I'll leave it that. I will leave it there.
Okay. Anything else from anyone?
I feel if somebody like Swami Vivekananda or somebody would have to temporarily enter our bodies, they would feel that.
Rajiv, you're practically unintelligible. I don't know what the difficulty is, but the connection that you have is not allowing your voice to come through intelligibly.
Is it good now?
Yeah, that's much better.
I was wondering, like, if there's a somebody like Swami Vivekananda or a sadhu, they would temporarily enter our bodies. They would probably think that this person is not. I think it's very relative. Like, even like sometimes if I meditate a lot, or if anybody meditates a lot, we reach a stage, and if you compare it with some other situation, I would say that is being mentally ill.
Well, we live in a society that is mentally ill, manifestly. And so it's very hard not to be affected by it. The collective unconscious really affects the way we experience the world. And there's the definition of sanity that's out there now, which says that the definition of being a good citizen and a useful person is that you are a producer and a consumer. And that pretty well defines your role in the world. You're a good producer, you have a good job, and you produce, or you're productive and you do well, and you use the resources that are gained by your job to consume. Have a big house, a big car, lots of things. This is a definition of insanity.
I think with like what people call normal, it's almost impossible to live peacefully, with that state of mind.
Well, I can't imagine how you would, no. Anything
Brother.
else? Thank you, Rajiv.
Hello, brother.
Yes, Stephen.
Yes. Would you say a little bit more about kind of this collective unconsciousness? Because I was listening to something the other day, I think it was Swami Sarvi Priyananda, and he was talking about it. So, I had thought of karma as something all related to, individual past actions, but, I'm getting more the sense that there's also this collective karma that, impacts us as well. And
Absolutely. Absolutely, Stephen. The collective unconscious, that's a term that was coined, I believe, by C.G. Jung, Carl Jung. And there is only one consciousness. If consciousness is what we understand it to be from everything taught to us, it cannot be more than one. And yet there appear to be more than one. And so, there appears to be more than one. So we have this immediate conflict and paradox between the reality as we're given it by the scriptures and the teachers and our experience. Now, when you don't have a spiritual grounding of any kind, this simply tosses you about continuously. The fact that you are this one conscious being, this Atman, this Brahman, but they don't know anything about that. They only know their daily experience. And so what it leads to is a lot of self-medication by so many people. That anguish that anguish that leads to their self-medication and their trying to have some happiness, some sort of peace of mind in this terribly anguished situation through this collective unconscious, this aspect of consciousness that we share universally. All human beings, perhaps all living beings of any kind, share this collective unconscious. And so we experience what others are experiencing, and this, as you say, this shared karma. There clearly is shared karma because of what we do as a society, our agreements about how to behave as a society lead to a shared karma. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Stephen, for the question. Anything else from anyone?
Brother, I have something.
Yes.
I'm trying to get caught up with the class and I'm still back in chapter 1, but something that it said in Divine Grace and that you mentioned that Tokaran said, and it sounds like what Young was saying about nurturing the ego. He said Tokaran said that to trade up, and basically instead of rather than to try to destroy the ego. But what does this healthy or proper use of the ego look like?
Sri Ramakrishna used two examples. If you watch an expert dancer, you see that the music is playing, but they are not dancing to the music. Their ego is submerged in their action. And so what they're doing is the music is simply moving them. They're moving perfectly to the music, but it isn't that they are thinking about it. And the second one is the trained singer. Sri Ramakrishna says, this is trading up, that even the most highly trained singer cannot keep her voice always on the highest note. So you come back down from that to ordinary consciousness, but the ordinary consciousness has been transformed for you so that it is no longer one of needing and attachment and desire. It's simply you are doing the next appropriate thing because it's clear to you what the next appropriate thing is. This goes back to the example, the metaphor of the expert dancer. The expert dancer doesn't have to think about where to put his or her foot, does not have to think about how to hold their hand or their arms, in ballet called porte-bras. They don't have to think about that. It simply is they have trained themselves to the point where the influence of the Atman, the intentions of the Atman, inflected by the gunas, are followed perfectly. And of course, this is not something that we can talk about and then do. We have to learn our way there by many years of spiritual practice. It isn't something that you can just hear it and then do it. It's like if you wanted to become, if any one of us here wanted to become a championship tennis player, really competitive on an international basis, and we had the physical capability of doing that, it would take us about 10 or 12 years of dedicated effort. Well, the same thing is true of spiritual practice. Does all of that make sense?
Actually, it does. It reminds me of a saying from another book, and it says that we'll intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us.
Yes, exactly.
It'll just happen by itself.
That's
right.
exactly it.
Exactly.
And this is what Sri Krishna says in the Gita. You become more effective and efficient.
Yes.
How are we doing for time? Oh my goodness, it's almost the hour.
We have a few more minutes. I can finish Jnana Yoga. It's just like 10, 12 lines, Brother Shankara.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Jnana Yoga is the path of intellectual discrimination, the way of finding Brahman through analysis of the real nature of phenomena. One more time. Jnana Yoga is the path of intellectual discrimination, the way of finding Brahman through analysis of the real nature of phenomena. The Jnana Yogi rejects all that is transient and apparent and superficial, saying not this, not this, and so comes at length to Brahman by the process of elimination.
Notice the action word in that. The action word is rejects, otherwise written about as ignores. When one does this analysis, this intellectual, philosophical analysis of what is real and what is unreal, then one actively rejects, renounces, ignores, lets go, just use whatever action word you want. But it is no longer a mental activity. It is a continuous, and I mean continuous for the Jnana Yogi, it is a continuous activity of deliberately ignoring the invitation to the transient and the ephemeral, the things of time, space, and causation. And it is a very, very difficult path to live because you simply don't have much left in your life. As it's said of the Jnana Yogi, they have compassion for humanity, but they don't have much to do with individual human beings. Anything about Jnana Yoga from anyone? All right.
It says, this is the difficult path calling for tremendous powers of will and clarity of mind. It is not for ordinary people, but it has attracted and made saints of many remarkable men and women who would otherwise not have embraced religion in any form. I'll read this one more time. The Jnana Yogi rejects all that is transient and apparent and superficial, saying not this, and so comes at length to Brahman by the process of elimination. This is a difficult path, calling for tremendous powers of will and clarity of mind. It's not for ordinary people, but it has attracted and made saints of many remarkable men and women who would otherwise not have embraced religion in any form. I'll stop it here, Brother Shankara. It's your time, 1 o'clock.
Yes,
And
is that the end of the Jnana?
that's the end of Jnana Yoga, so we can discuss. you can
Okay,
comment.
we'll read it again next time
Yes,
and discuss it if there's any discussion.
exactly.
Any final thought? Any final comment or concern or question from anyone? Well, one of the things that is interesting is that there are people who have near-death experiences. One of them is a man named Howard Storm, S-T-O-R-M, Howard Storm. He was brought to my attention yesterday, and according to his report of his experience, his near-death experience, he had a conversation with a being that, because of his background, he saw as Jesus Christ. And it may well have been Jesus Christ. I don't know. But in any event, people have different traditions and different cultures throughout the ages have all had conversations with this divine being made of light, and they see it, of course, in their own context. But this man, coming from a Sunday school background, saw it as Jesus Christ. And Christ said, it's really very simple. He said, to solve the problems of life and to be happy, love the one you're with, and you will slowly and slowly change the entire world. He said, those are the words that Howard Storm used to describe what Christ said to him. Love the one you're with. And I think that this is what we experience when we're together this way, as this gathering of however many people we are today, 15 or so people. There's a remarkable undercurrent of compassionate, I would say loving attention paid to one another. So if that's the grand plan, we seem to be cooperating. So thank you all for being with us. Thank you all for your contributions, whether you say anything or not. And because of that undercurrent that not available to our senses, but available to our intuition, sense of one another. So, salutations to you all. Oh, dearly beloved, a flower at your feet for each one who comes to your open door. A flower at your feet for each one who stands by your open door and says, come to me, offering to break this world's chain that binds us down to ignorance, suffering, and death. A flower at your feet for each one who takes the path that you have struck through this, your jungle world. Om, Amen, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace and blessed beneficence be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Hari Om Tat Sat. O dearly beloved, make it so. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we know we are always in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being as our Mother and Father. So until tomorrow morning, for those of you who decide to join us at 11 a.m., when we have an open forum on karma yoga, that there's a worksheet attached to the newsletter that you may have received. If you don't receive the newsletter, you can go on the website and find that worksheet attachment to download there. We'll start tomorrow morning with a guided meditation that leads us to this awareness of our true inner being, the one that either does know everything or knows nothing. Depends on which lens you wish to look at it through. So that's what we'll do in the morning. For those of you who decide to join us, any final thought from anyone? All right, dears, thank you so very much for all of this. It is so uplifting and joyous to be among you. And away we go.